When the internet began, bulletin board services, or BBS, became the first online communities of the so-called information superhighway. Using their phone lines, people logged in from all over America to talk about sports, games, movies, and on one BBS in particular, share their ghost stories. Over time, those communities all went dark, except for one lone server that continues to operate somewhere in an unknown part of Pennsylvania's Rust Belt. A relic of the 1990s, veiled in mystery, it is a digital archive of humanity's strangest encounters with the unknown, as told by the people who experienced them. My name is Brandon Schexnayder, and you are listening to Fear Daily.
Subject: Coyotes in the Canyon. User: SGTMJP22. Posted May 14, 1999.
They told me when I checked into Pendleton that Rose Canyon was a good place to walk off the noise. Marines throw that phrase around like it's a cure-all. Walk it off, shake it loose, get back to center. I'd been home from a deployment with the 11th MU barely a week, still sleeping light and waking at odd hours, so a solo hike didn't sound like a bad idea. I had a long weekend, a truck with half a tank, and a need to be somewhere that didn't echo. Rose Canyon sits between the base and the sprawl of San Diego suburbs, just a narrow cut of sandstone, dry brush, and scrub oak. From the road, it looks peaceful, but peace is deceptive out here. These hills belong to animals long before anybody carved trails into them, and the animals never really signed off on the change. I parked by the trailhead late in the afternoon. The sun was slanting low enough to paint the canyon gold, but the shadows were already stretching thin along the ravine. I tightened the straps on my pack, took a long pull from my canteen, and stepped onto the dirt path. The world out there always smells the same. Dust, sage, dry grass, like the land is about 3 days from catching fire. I walked maybe 15 minutes before I noticed it. Not a sound, not a shape, just a shift in attention. The canyon felt like it had turned its head toward me. I kept moving, letting that awareness sit in the back of my mind like a weight on the stock of a rifle. Halfway up the ridge was where I found the rabbit, or what used to be one. It lay stretched beside the trail, torn apart in a way that didn't match anything I knew from the region. Coyotes usually go for the neck or gut and carry the body off. Cougars kill clean, almost surgical. This was chaos. Claw marks, bite patterns overlapping, fur scattered in clumps like the thing had exploded. I crouched and put 2 fingers near the exposed muscle. Warm, blood still tacky. Whatever did this happened minutes before I arrived. I straightened, scanning the brush. Nothing moved, nothing rustled. The quiet had a texture to it, thick, pressing against my ears like I'd stepped into a sealed room. Even the insects were silent. I could feel my breathing slow, not from fear, but from training, my body shifting gears. The trail kept climbing, narrow and steady. I followed it along the ridgeline for a while, but the sense of being watched sharpened into something more focused. Every few steps, I could swear the brush ahead of me dimmed a touch, as if something passed through it just out of sight. About a mile in, I heard the first sound, a single yip. Coyotes are common enough out here that the call itself didn't bother me. But the tone of it was strange. Too clipped, too abrupt. Coyotes usually sing in packs, ranging up and down the scale in a messy chorus. This one sounded like punctuation, a warning. I stepped off the trail and onto a rocky outcrop overlooking the canyon. From up there, I could see the suburban houses in the distance, a little line of beige roofs pressed together like dominoes. Behind me, nothing but hills and the brush and empty sky. The yip came again, closer. I stayed still. Staying still is sometimes the loudest thing you can do. When you're in the field, movement gives you away long before sound does. My instinct said wait, so I waited. A shape slipped out from behind a clump of sage about 50 yards downslope. At first glance, it was just a coyote. Lean body, pointed muzzle, tawny fur the color of the dirt, but it stood differently. Taller, shoulders raised, its legs looked too long for the frame, like it had grown in the wrong order, and then it turned its head and looked straight at me. The eyes weren't yellow like a typical coyote. They were red. Not glowing like cheap movie effects, but deep and wet, like fresh blood reflecting the light. I didn't move, and neither did it. Something rustled behind it. Another coyote stepped out, bigger. Same red eyes, and then another, and then two more. They kept coming until there were at least 8 of them spread along the slope, arranged in a loose arc like they were hurting me against the rock. I've spent my share of time staring down hostile intent, and this pack had that same cold, evaluating posture. Predators deciding what portion of you they'll test first. The largest one, maybe the alpha, if the concept even applied to whatever these things were, took a few slow steps forward, its ribs stretched and compressed under the skin like something was moving beneath them. It lowered its head, but not in threat, in curiosity. I slid one hand toward my belt where I kept a folding knife. Slow, smooth, no sudden motion. The alpha's ears twitched. The others tensed as a unit, subtle and precise. Normal coyotes scattered when confronted. These behaved like something had taught them discipline. The alpha moved another step, its mouth peeled open just slightly, and I saw teeth that looked too uneven, too jagged. Coyotes have sharp canines, but otherwise fairly uniform teeth. These looked broken with purpose. A low, breathy sound came from it. Not a growl, more like a rasp dragged across metal. I didn't like my odds on that exposed rock with the canyon behind me and the pack blocking the way forward, so I shifted my position just enough to angle downslope. The coyotes watched every inch. Their eyes tracked me and sank like the swing of a compass needle. Then the alpha lunged. It did not leap like a normal coyote. It covered distance in a way that didn't fit the body. Too fast, too fluid, like the ground was assisting it. I pivoted hard and slid down the loose gravel, hitting the slope with enough momentum that dirt sprayed behind me. The Alpha snapped its jaws where my arm had been a second before. It made a noise that sounded almost like annoyance, and the others followed. I crashed through the scrub, tearing my sleeves on sharp branches, sliding and half falling down the incline. The pack didn't bark or yip now. They stayed silent, which was worse. I could hear their claws skittering over rock, the quick staccato rhythm of them coordinated behind me. When I hit the canyon floor, I scrambled to my feet and sprinted through a narrow wash. My legs found their old pace, the one you use when you don't have time to think about form or breath. Behind me, the pack poured over the ridge like a spill of fur and muscle. I ducked between two boulders and broke left toward thicker brush. The trail was somewhere ahead, and once I hit it, I could get enough open space to plan something smarter than run. Branches clawed at my arms. Stones rolled under my boots. I could hear the pack spreading out, flanking me in the brush. They were fast, unnervingly fast. Every time I glanced over my shoulder, I caught a flicker of red eyes weaving between the sage, keeping pace. The trail appeared 50 yards ahead. I pushed harder, lungs burning. The first coyote broke from the brush on my right and charged, but its angle was too wide. I pivoted just enough that it snapped at empty air and tumbled past me, kicking up dust. The Alpha came next. It hit me from behind, not full force, but enough to send me stumbling forward onto my hands. Pain shot up my wrist. I rolled instinctively as its jaws snapped shut inches from my face. I kicked out hard, catching it under the jaw. It jerked back, shaking its head once like it was resetting. I scrambled upright and sprinted the last stretch to the trail. The open path gave me room to maneuver. I grabbed the largest rock I could lift, maybe 10 pounds, and hurled it at the closest coyote. It cracked against its shoulder. The animal yelped, but didn't fall. They circled low to the ground. The air felt hot, thick, humming with their breath. The Alpha paced back and forth, studying me with those bloodshot eyes. It wasn't just instinct driving them. Something else simmered behind their movements, something calculating. Then, as abruptly as they'd attacked, they stopped. The Alpha lifted its head toward the ridge. The others followed. A sound drifted down the canyon, a distant engine, the rumble of a van or truck heading toward the trailhead. The Alpha looked back at me, its pupils narrowed to slits. It took one long step backward, then another. The pack retreated in unison, melting into the brush without the slightest rustle. Within seconds, they were gone. I stood there, breathing hard, sweat running down my face, dust coating my tongue. When the van pulled into the lot, an older couple stepped out with a golden retriever and a collapsible water bowl. They waved at me like everything was normal. I waved back. I never filed a report. What would I even say? Coyotes, but not like any coyotes biology ever approved. I've seen enough in my life to know when a story won't survive paperwork, but I haven't stepped foot in Rose Canyon again. Sometimes on the far edge base at night, I'll hear coyotes yipping in the hills. Normal ones. Uneven, chaotic, nothing coordinated about it. The sound drifts easy through the dark, and every once in a while, though, just once in a while, I'll hear a call that cuts through the others. Short, precise, almost like punctuation.
Subject: The Heist. User: Crew Lead 23. Posted May 11th, 1997.
How many times have I written this story? It has to be more than 20. If you told me it was more than 100, I'd believe that too. The only thing I know for sure is that on the first night, I couldn't write it because it hadn't happened yet. It was Monday. I woke up to dark skies outside and my alarm clock buzzing in my ear. I'd set it for 9:30, a good hour before Georgie and Dom were supposed to pick me up, and 90 minutes before the main event. That first night, I didn't even look at the fucking computer as best as I remember. I got out of bed, took a leak, then opened my bedroom closet. The duffel was in there, on the ground, same as it has been every time since, and I yanked it out. The guns inside clanked against each other, 2 pump actions for me and Dom, a 9mm for Georgie. At 10:30, I was outside on the sidewalk, shivering my way through a smoke before they got there. We'd be taking Dom's Crown Vic to the job, and his old lady hated the smell of smoke, so no one was allowed to light up in there anymore. If that's marriage, I always used to say, I'd rather be single till the day I die. Talk about being careful what you wish for. Every single time I do this, the boys are 5 minutes late. Some things, I guess, even God can't change, like my little brother not being able to read a fucking clock. I took the rear middle seat, the duffel next to me. We didn't talk much on the way over to the bakery. Wise guys like to mouth off, say they're not nervous when they do rips. Almost every single one of them is lying through their fucking teeth. Only ones not nervous are the psychos like Fat Johnny and Tony Eyes, both of them giant, Frankenstein-looking wobs sent over as extra muscle for the family. Every time one of those thick-necked motherfuckers gets off a plane from the old country, I find myself wondering what they're putting in the water over there. Georgie likes to put on a show, make people think he's a psycho. It's a good act, which is why Dom and I brought him in on the bakery heist. Dom's been taking orders from me since we were kids, so if I tell him to shoot anyone who moves, he will. He just can't improvise. Georgie's the opposite. He can play a psycho better than Bobby De Niro. Scare the suckers, keep them in line. It's in his nature. Pulling the trigger isn't. The bakery is in Brooklyn, next to the L track and a Mexican grocery. It's affiliated, just not with our people or their friends. During the day, they sell shitty bagels and muffins to whoever the fuck. Then, at night, they host a card game for low-level greaseballs. Word is that the biggest pots were on the weekend, so security those nights was heavy. Monday, I'd been told there were fewer people and a lower buy-in with no security whatsoever. We pulled up to the bakery a little after 10:30, parking in front of the check-cashing place next door. I unzipped the bag, took out the ski masks, and handed them to the boys. Dom's always been an anxious kid and looked a little shaky. He'd be fine once things got serious. Georgie's face was expressionless, getting into character, I guess. Our faces covered, we took our guns and got out of the car. Just down from the corner of the bakery, a black door was set in the wall. It was the delivery entrance where the players would come and go. The plan was to wait for the L and kick in the door while it was rattling by coming in hot like Desert Storm and taking everyone by surprise. I took point, Georgie just behind me so he could control the room once we got inside, with Dom batting cleanup. In the distance, I heard the click-clack of the L coming closer. I tensed. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. The wooden stock of the pump action was cold in my hand. The second that train burst past the edge of the building, I kicked hard, splintering the door jamb and stepping inside. I don't know why I thought I had to let off a round to get everyone's attention. After all, that was the whole point of the fucking train, but whether because of the adrenaline or because I'm just a natural-born fuck-up, that's what I did. Didn't even look first. We were surrounded by maybe a dozen wise guys sitting at flimsy card tables under the dim lighting of the bakery's back room. In the frozen moment of horror after I'd squeezed the trigger, I had just enough time to think, isn't this a school night? As if I could argue away the kid that was in my line of fire. He had brown corduroy pants and white sneakers, a red Coke can held in both his little hands. The last look on his face was fear, as if the monster under the bed had finally popped up. Then, the shotgun slug tore his head apart like a water balloon, spattering red rain across the wall of white boxes behind him. No one moved. A moment later, those little hands dropped the Coke can they'd been clutching so tightly it hit the ground with a liquid thud, a miniature geyser of soda spouting up out of the top. After that, I heard footsteps behind me running that got further away, Georgie and Dom trying to make a break for it. I don't know if they ever made it out because the next thing I heard was a gunshot and everything went black. I woke up to an alarm clock buzzing in my ear and nauseous guilt in my stomach. I rolled out of bed with just enough time to vomit on the hardwood instead of my pillow. I wiped my forearm across my mouth, looked at the alarm clock, 9:30 p.m. I crawled over to the closet and checked to see if the duffel was still in the closet. It was, the guns cold and unfired. Relief washed over me. I stood on shaky legs. It had been a dream. Of course it had. There was no way I'd be so drunk on adrenaline I'd just blind fire a fucking shotgun into a room. I might be an idiot, but I wasn't that kind of idiot. At 10:30 p.m., I was downstairs smoking, still thinking about it. It had been so vivid, not like anything I'd ever had before. I was so lost in my own head, I didn't hear Dom laying on the horn until he shouted my name out the window. The hell of it is, as soon as I got in the Crown Vic, I forgot it all. The dream and everything in it drifted away like smoke. And then, as soon as I kicked in that door, it happened again. The roar of the L, the thunder blast of the pump action, the tiny, headless body briefly hanging on to its soda, the last bullet to my head. I woke up again, and again, and again. I've tried to break the loop, but no matter what, I end up in that Crown Vic, and as soon as I do, everything goes away. The nightmares just keep happening. I don't know if what we did will have made the papers or not. Christ, I don't even know if life has continued on for everyone else or if you're all stuck in this with me, living the worst day of my life over and over. Maybe this is hell and I'm writing this to no one. I deserve it.
Fear Daily is an independent podcast hosted by Brandon Schexnayder and written by Brennan Storr, with Joanna Smith serving as the consulting editor, audio production by Rachel Boyd and sound design by Southern Gothic Media. This podcast is a work of fiction. Names, characters, places, and incidents are either products of the author's imagination or are used fictitiously. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or to real events or locations, is entirely coincidental. Ad-free versions of Fear Daily are available now on your favorite podcast apps. For more information, visit feardaily.com. But move fast, before the server goes offline.